Is it possible that Lewis Hamilton is regretting signing for Ferrari before the season even starts? What he said after testing the new SF26 upgrade package in Barcelona and the impending tests in Bahrain reveal more than many care to admit. The Barcelona test was sold as a resounding success for Ferrari. The headlines made it clear, Hamilton flies in Barcelona, Ferrari sets the best time, the SF26 surprises everyone. But this narrative is misleading. Yes, Hamilton managed an impressive 1 minute and 16.348 seconds during the final day, using soft C5 tires and improved track conditions. However, this time was recorded in a short run, in a specific window of the day, and with a setup that did not reflect the actual behavior of the car in race configuration. That is, a useful number for headlines but dangerous if interpreted out of context. What was truly important was happening in the telemetry, in the simulation data, and in the physical reaction of the car in a curve. For 5 days, Ferrari was able to lap relatively reliably, completing around 440 laps. This was sold as a sign of progress compared to previous winters. But the number of turns does not always reflect quality. Internally, Maranello engineers were dealing with a problem that had accompanied them during wind tunnel development, the instability of the rear axle. And it was in Barcelona where this theory became real. In sectors such as turn 10, a medium-speed corner with transition from braking to acceleration, Hamilton experienced multiple critical moments of oversteer. A 360-degree spin was even recorded by fans and shared on networks, which set off alarms not only among Ferrari engineers, but also in the corridors of the specialized press. This type of behavior is not casual, nor is it justified by a supposed seeking of limits. In this type of test, the teams work with controlled margins. If a car loses the rear axle violently at low speed, the problem is systemic. And that is precisely what SF26 revealed. Technically, the Ferrari car implements a complex active aerodynamic strategy, where the front and rear wings are not adjusted at the same time, but do so in a sequence calculated to redistribute the aerodynamic load during corner entry. It is a cutting-edge solution that seeks to improve rotation and reduce understeer, something that has historically affected Ferrari. But this technology, in an early stage of development, did not offer the promised stability. The most worrying thing is that this solution, although innovative, exposes the car to sudden changes in aerodynamic balance, just when the driver needs stability most, in the transition between braking and accelerating. For Hamilton, this was the most frustrating aspect. Accustomed to the predictability of the Mercedes, facing a car that reacts differently from corner to corner, and within the same corner depending on the charging mode, is not only disconcerting but also deeply discouraging. Because it is not simply a setup problem. It is a concept issue. Furthermore, other teams in the paddock soon noticed this weakness. Sky Sports analysts and technical sources reported that even teams like Mercedes and Red Bull viewed Ferrari's numbers with skepticism. In the words of a rival engineer quoted by specialized media, "Ferrari is fast but not constant. The car moves too much and that cannot be fixed with engine maps." A phrase that summarizes the true situation of the Scuderia. They have speed on a lap, but they do not have consistency for the race. And that, in modern Formula One, is a sentence of mediocrity. What the public didn't see in Barcelona was the team's desperate effort to find a setup window that would stabilize the car. From rake changes to rear suspension modifications, Ferrari tested more than 14 setup combinations in just the 3 allowed days of shooting. Nothing was conclusive. The car was fast when everything clicked, but extremely fragile in any less than ideal conditions. So yes, the best time was for Hamilton. But behind that achievement lies one of Ferrari's biggest technical concerns since the beginning of this new regulatory era. The question that everyone in the team asks but few dare to verbalize is, what if the problem is not in the adjustments, but in the base concept of the car? And that doubt, that persistent shadow, was what Hamilton took back to Maranello after the close of the tests. Because when the stopwatch lies, the only thing that remains is the uncomfortable truth of the car's dynamics. And that truth, in the case of Ferrari, is as brilliant as it is dangerous. Ferrari is about to face one of the most decisive moments in recent years. The Bahrain tests are not simply a continuation of the work in Barcelona. They represent a technical, strategic, and emotional watershed. If in Montmello it was about collecting data and discovering the basic character of the SF26, in Sakir we enter the territory where there is no longer room for excuses. Now it's time to perform. The structure of the test plan reveals the seriousness of the moment. Ferrari will not carry a single package of improvements, but rather 2 staggered phases. From February 11th to 13th, a final validation of the car will be completed in its spec configuration, the same one that presented inconsistencies in the medium and high curve, but which served to refine the integration of the energy systems and the correlation with the wind tunnel data. This stage does not seek pure performance but reliability under stress. In the scorching Bahrain climate, with track temperatures approaching 40 degrees Celsius and low humidity levels, the 0.676 power unit will be pushed to its limits. Not only to measure its sustained delivery capacity, but to check if the hybrid system supports the double thermal and energy regeneration challenge that the new 2026 regulation imposes. The real leap, however, will come in the second round of tests between February 18th and 20th. Here, Ferrari will finally deploy its Spec B, the most aggressive upgrade package ever introduced by Maranello so early in a pre-season. And this is not an empty statement. Within this package, a significant revision of the car's floor is expected, a partial redesign of the side profiles, modifications to the beam wing, and an evolution of the active aerodynamic system that would now allow more fluid synchronization between the front and rear axle, something key to reducing the instability observed in Barcelona. What makes this update even more critical is that it is not intended as an emergency response. According to internal Ferrari sources, the Spec B was planned since December. In other words, Ferrari has been developing two paths in parallel, a conservative one for validation, what we saw in Barcelona, and a radical one designed to execute in Bahrain with real data in hand. This two-way philosophy is risky, but necessary if you want to face on equal terms a McLaren that already proved dominant in long runs in the tests, and a Mercedes that, although more discreet, has demonstrated mechanical consistency without major shocks. The challenge for Hamilton is twofold. On the one hand, you must adapt your driving to a car that will change substantially between phases. On the other hand, he must lead the technical feedback together with Leclerc without differences in style generating divergences in the direction of development. In this context, your experience becomes more valuable than ever. How you interpret the sensations of the new package and translate them into useful feedback can be the difference between a competitive car from Melbourne or a technical Frankenstein that still doesn't behave as its simulations promise. The tests in Bahrain also test something more subtle but fundamental: the internal credibility of the Ferrari-Hamilton project. The Briton arrived at Maranello not only as a driver, but as a catalyst for cultural change. He promised to raise the standard of work, bring with it more rigorous analysis routines, demanding processes, and even a more methodical approach to strategic decision-making. In Formula One, those promises must be validated with results. And we're not just talking about stopwatches. It's about how the team reacts to the stress of testing, how technical priorities are communicated, how unexpected failures are responded to. All of this will be exposed without filters on the asphalt of Sakir. That's why Bahrain is not just a test for SF26. It's a test for the new Ferrari. The Ferrari of Vasseur, of Cardile, of Enrico Galtieri, and now also of Lewis Hamilton. A team that has historically been brilliant symbolically, but unstable operationally, faces the most direct test that can exist, replicating on the track with pressure what was promised for months in the renders and simulations. And if they fail, there will be no time for deep corrections before the first Grand Prix in Australia. Because the margins of this new regulation are narrower. Because energy efficiency is measured in thousands. Because rivals are not going to wait. And because, deep down, everyone knows that the media's patience with Ferrari is finite. Each failed test rekindles the ghosts of 2017, 2018, 2019. And now, with Hamilton on board, the magnifying glass is even bigger. That's why Ferrari's all or nothing in Bahrain is not an exaggeration. It is a technical, strategic, and media statement. If the car does not respond, the season may be mortgaged before it begins. And if he answers, then we will have witnessed the birth of a true contender. The clock has already started ticking. And this time there is no turning back. But if it fails, if Spec B does not solve the balance problems, if one-lap speed still does not translate into race consistency, if the wall's strategic decisions repeat past mistakes, then the narrative will take a dark and dizzying turn. Because at Ferrari, failures are not digested calmly. They become crises. And if that happens, internal tensions will grow, the relationship with Leclerc will erode, and the press will begin to build an inevitable new question. Was it a mistake? Leave me in the comments what you think about all this.